Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TA Tech Direct Employers Joint Digital Conference. We're just delighted to have you here. Now, these kinds of events are all about learning, of course, but typically at conferences, learning is a one-way experience. Particularly online, you spend a lot of time getting talked at. This conference is going to be different. This conference is going to involve learning in two ways. First, we've invited 16 of the smartest people on the planet to come together and discuss, probe, debate, explore 8 important topics for talent acquisition in 2021 and beyond. But second, we also want to get you involved. Instead of having you talked at, we want you to talk with these thought leaders, to get involved in the conversation. There's a lot of wisdom out there among all of you who are making talent acquisition happen every single day. And we hope that you'll practice that early lesson that your mom and dad taught you. It's nice to share. Share your experiences, share your insights, get up on the virtual stage and let's have a strategic conversation about talent acquisition. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're going to cover 8 topics that are very important for talent acquisition, both today and tomorrow. And the way it's going to work is we're going to ask 2 thought leaders, one drawn from employers and one drawn from the industry side of the house, to get together and explore a topic for 20 to 30 minutes. They're going to get up on the stage and discuss it, debate it, kick it around, and then we're going to open up the floor to you. And there are several ways that you can get. As you probably saw from the email that we sent you prior to the conference, you can pre-reserve, or you could have pre-reserved, questions and comments for each of the topics. And we've had a number of those submitted. So we'll be getting to those, of course. But first, we want to give those of you who are in the audience right now, participating in the event, to use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your frame and to ask a question right off the bat. But please include your first name so we can recognize you. And when we do recognize you by your first name, please click on the Raise Your Hand tab at the bottom of your frame so we can recognize you. We have a very big crowd, so we want to be able to identify you in the crowd so that our producers can give you permission to turn on your mic and turn on your camera and get up on stage. In addition, during our intermissions, each of which is 10 minutes long, you'll have a chance to talk to one another. We're going to turn the chat function on or open it up to everyone so that you can engage with your peers and talk about what you're hearing, what you're learning, what your thoughts are on these important topics. And finally, we hope you'll share some of what you're learning out on social media. Please use our hashtag TA Conversations and let folks know some of the things that are being discussed, some of the things that you're learning. So as I said at the outset, this is all about a conference where you're not going to be talked at, but where you're going to have a chance to talk with your peers. And we really hope you'll take advantage of it. We've got 8 great topics coming up. Today, we're going to cover, is there such a thing as candidate empathy in an era of recruitment automation? Can we still connect with one another, even though a lot of that connection is being done with machines? Second, how can technology help an employer advance its DE&I efforts? Can technology actually help improve the diversity and inclusion in our organizations? Third, what steps should recruiters take to ensure they maximize their ROI in technology? Recruiters are getting bombarded by an ever-advancing stream of new technology-based products. And it's important then when they acquire those products that they actually work as advertised. So how can you make sure that actually happens? And finally, fourth, what's the appropriate role for technology in a company that practices values-based recruitment? A big movement today, given the push for better corporate citizenship. So it's important that technology help and advance that move. So that's what we're going to cover today. And then tomorrow, as you can see at the bottom of the slide, we got 4 more great topics, and we'll cover those tomorrow. Next slide, please. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Olio. Olio describes itself as a recruiting force multiplier. It uses automation and intelligence in a platform called the Recruiting Enablement Platform to help you improve your acquisition of great talent, diverse talent, faster and better than ever before. We're going to hear from Olio later in the program, but if you'd like to get some information right now, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, we have one of their representatives with us today. Please reach out to Adam, and I'm sure he'll get you whatever information that you need. Okay, let's get started. Our first topic: is there such a thing as candidate empathy in an era of recruitment automation? We have two wonderful speakers. Louis Nafieski is the CEO of Bayard Advertising, and Marie Artim is the Vice President for Talent Acquisition at Enterprise Holdings. Now, we do very short introductions here at TA Tech, so I've asked both of them when they come up on stage to spend a little time talking about themselves as well. So Louis and Marie, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Peter. Marie?
Yes.
Why don't you start and introduce yourself?
Great. Happy to, and thank you. And thanks, Peter and everyone. I'm getting a note that I can't start my video. So Kelsey, that might be something you can help with. Anyway, well, while that's happening and the fun of what we're talking about today in the virtual era, I am pleased to be here. So again, my name is Marie Artim. I am the Vice President of Talent Acquisition globally for Enterprise Holdings, which is the Enterprise National and Alamo brands. So our overall name isn't as much a household name, but hopefully those are. And I have been in this space for a number of years, running the recruitment efforts at some level within the organization, and with that, for about 25 plus years, I have a unique story today, although it used to be impressive. Now it makes people wonder what's wrong with me. And that I have been with Enterprise since the beginning. We are a promote from within organization, have a lot of stories like mine. And I started right out of college into our management training program and worked in the business for a while, shifted into HR and recruiting several years ago, and I've been here ever since. So I've been very fortunate to have a great career that's taken me a lot of places. But my role is, and the way we are structured, is very much as a consultant to our business and to our talent acquisition teams in the field, and really driving strategy, processes, tools, and resources, and ultimately results through a decentralized but hybrid model of a great recruiting team of about 150 folks globally. So that is me.
Great. Thanks, Marie. My name is Louis Nafieski, and I'm the CEO of Bayard Advertising. I, like Marie, have been in this business for a long period of time, similar to Marie. And we've seen our agency transform over the past 25 years. We're a 97-year-old agency, but we've seen the past 25 years as a transformation time. Transformation from print to digital, from digital to AI, and from AI and beyond. So it's an exciting time in this space, and we have the privilege of working with many of the nation's top 1,000 companies. And from each of our clients, we learn every day more and more. And from each as a CEO of a company, it's really my job to listen to our clients and also to listen to our employees, because if it isn't for our employees, we wouldn't have a great agency. So empathy is the most important thing, especially even more so during COVID. So empathy during COVID has truly been a challenge, and getting our clients and our employees through that time has been a challenge as well. So, but thank you very much for having me, Peter, and everybody else. And Marie, you want to go into our presentation and conversation?
Sure, sounds great.
So, Marie, for many, many years, we've looked from the agency side at Enterprise Holdings as a case study of a great brand that everybody starts from the ground up and succeeds like and there are very few brands that emulate your culture. How have these times of COVID, how have you dealt with that branding issue, and what have you done to, just an open question, how have you dealt with that branding issue?
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for the compliment. I think, we do have a really unique culture and are really proud of the employment brand that's been built around it. And really what that is, we as a company really believe from a founding values perspective that, and a mission that we take care of our customers and our employees first, and doing those things will lead to growth, profitability, and all the stuff that's supposed to come with it. And that believing that no matter what our business is, it's truly a people business has from the top down, and really with genuine work and support behind it, has allowed us, I think, to see the successes we have. But the things that really speak to our employment brand is that internal mobility, that opportunity for people to, whether it's across, sideways, up or down, find different ways to continue and to find opportunities and growth within the organization, to exceed our customers' expectations. We're a really high touch culture. So, obviously COVID has played a role in that. And when we look at that from the candidate or employee experience, from an employment brand perspective, because of who we are as a consumer brand, we've always believed in that kind of candidate experience, even before I think it was a term that we were all trying to jump in on. And, when we look at that candidate experience from, the differences from January, February to now, it was triggered with those things that are so important to our how we do things, being very high touch, being in front of people, having a very face-to-face kind of an approach to our efforts. And so, having to kind of overcome that has definitely been difficult. In addition to just, so many changes to our business and adapting to those, from who we hire, what they do, when we hire. So a lot happening in that space.
So Marie, during this pandemic time, you've gone through 3 phases. You've reacted, you reset, reshaped the organization and the employee and the recruiting. How has that reshape and reset, how do you use technology in aiding you in that?
From a recruitment perspective?
Sure.
Yeah, we've so I think as we went through that as a business, we had to follow what the business needed. So obviously being in the travel industry, we went to nothing for a really quick time and really uncertain times and some tough areas when we were in React, and now as we are, we've moved into that reshape phase, and as I mentioned, changing our customer experience. We've also had to change our recruitment experience. So from a technology perspective, for us to go video and virtual has been a big shift. We have, as I mentioned, a lot of recruiters in the field, very locally based and very much part of the process. They manage a full talent life cycle and did so very much in a face-to-face interview type of environment. And so moving them to video was quick and seems easy, but for something that they were not used to doing, moving them to video, providing them the tools and resources to make sure that candidate experience didn't falter, using some of the tools we have with technology on the tech or the text side of things, which allowed us to better communicate with candidates and get in touch with them more quickly. And then I would say, one of our biggest probably aspects that we saw changes in from a technology perspective was the shift to virtual from campus. So campus is a big part of our overall strategy. And as campus recruiting went completely virtual kind of overnight, again, a big shift in how we were used to doing things. How do we make an impact? And, taking advantage of the technology that's out there, whether that be for events, for candidate experience and communication and follow-up, tracking through our CRM, to to just, top of the funnel, how do we get those students or those candidates in front of us when we're not there from a personal perspective. So I think we really dug into the virtual side of campus as a way to really kind of dig into technology probably fastest. And not maybe so much with automation, which I know is the topic here, but a little bit around that, but definitely more tools and resources that were new and different and had to be implemented pretty quickly.
So Marie, I believe when we had spoken, you had said that you're really almost on track to hire the same amount of people as last year, plus minus. That's an incredible feat and a great recovery for Enterprise Holdings. So it's got to be a challenge, and time to fill, I imagine, is a pretty big challenge as well. So have you looked at maybe any tools or explored anything to help you with time to fill? Because I imagine if you don't have people out there, you can't get the cars out on the road, et cetera, et cetera.
So I was laughing as you know, Liz, as we were talking about this to set up the session, that it's unique that I'm here because we are kind of in back to basics mode. So we do definitely use technology, I would say, as a support to our people versus in place of the person. So you're correct. We are hiring. We are finding it to be a very competitive market in a couple of different areas and ways. I think the fact that we are customer facing and it's going into a branch and it's helping people, in this era is not necessarily as attractive as it once was. So that doesn't help. So we are definitely, we are seeing a competitive market and trying to get people in the door quickly to support the business as it's working. I think from a technology standpoint or an automation standpoint, we had implemented not too long before, just prior to COVID kind of kicking in, a quick apply process. So that quick apply was, I think it was to shorten what do we need to collect from someone to be able to then interact with them. So, instead of our full long form application that everyone is so used to hating, we went to, how can we just collect enough information to get our recruiters something to work with. So that quick apply process, we automated some very basic but very important screening questions to help kind of define that candidate was qualified. But no matter what, they got, and a recruiter got back in touch with them. There was automation built on the back end, but it came from an actual recruiter mailbox with their email, with the ability for them to have a correspondence if necessary on the other end. So whether qualified or not, but we did automate it on the back end. We just used our ATS. So that's where I said we went kind of back to basics. We've used, we've kind of lessened our tech stack and simplified to really trying to go with, with what can we do with the tools that we already have and keep, a pulse on the personal side of it too. So it reminds me of one of your best practices or examples of how you were able to help with a business kind of with a similar situation.
Yeah, so we've had a situation, we have a fast food chain, Chili's, and they have a brand and they have a great brand. And during COVID, they had real issues and challenges. And coming out of COVID, they're really increasing their hiring exponentially, having a hard time finding employees for multiple reasons, as you guys are. So they couldn't field all the calls and they couldn't field, people didn't want to come in. So we have a tech stack that we offer them called Crow, which is an automated intelligence tool, which is allowing them to match up an employee and employer match up in a gamified way, maintaining the brand, because the brand to Chili's is important. They want their employees to really take hold of that brand. So we didn't want to lose the empathy of the brand. We wanted to make it a fun experience, not go into that black hole, which so many people go into with technology. And I think that's one of the key things with technology. Employees, job candidates are frustrated with that black hole. And we have to remember that the employee is also a customer. It's a customer to Enterprise or to Chili's. We handle one of the largest global employers in the world. And we've got to constantly remind that and continue to tell my internal technology teams and our clients that we need to have empathy in this time. And empathy is telling a story and telling a story that we care. And that's what we've done with our automated artificial intelligence tool, Crow. We're caring on behalf of the client. And it's increased speed to hire and reduced their costs significantly. So at the end of the day, it's a great testimonial that it's really moved the needle for them in a very fast-paced environment. Marie and I were talking, companies used to have annual forecasts. Now some companies are working on quarterlies, and some companies are working on monthly forecasts. So we have to be nimble enough to respond to our clients' needs and how they change and ebb and flow, and especially through this time.
Yeah, we are definitely on the quarterly forecast model at the moment, which is very unlike us, but I think there's a lot out there, especially those who, who may be in an industry such as ours, which, is ebbing and flowing with the pandemic. You mentioned the black hole, and I think from a candidate empathy perspective, we had shared some LinkedIn posts about presenting together, and someone commented on one of ours that they saw that, even before all of this and before automation, that's been an issue on the recruiting side as far as that, this topic. So it's interesting that we're talking about it now, because I think that's something when we talk about our brand that we've committed to. And whenever I mention it to our peers, like all of you listening today, our process, people are always like, oh my gosh, how can you possibly do it? So it is using, the idea is like I said, we will be available to every person. So we want a real person behind it. So even if there is an automation that takes place based on how screening questions are answered, you get an email from the recruiter tied to that job that says, here are the following are the basic qualifications, one of which you did not meet. If you'd like to discuss, let us know. It's a real recruiter they can get back to. If they go to our website, and no matter if they're qualified or not, they're getting a reply. And it's pretty easy to do that. So when we think about that black hole, I always am in awe of, why we can't at least let people know, like what your tool is doing as well, where they are in the process, or if they're in it or out of it anymore. So we've set that expectation that every candidate will hear back from someone on our team, through one of these mechanisms, text or email, but with that automation behind it, but from them within 5 business days. And we track that and we measure that on the part of our team. And, as I always say, and we also put all of our recruiters on our website with their contact information, so that someone has a question, they can actually find someone to ask the question of. Those are those black hole moments that I think we've really tried to, over many, many years, change. So we've had that in place, since the beginning of having a website. And while it's not always easy, we are fortunate in that we are not in that true decentralized model where a hiring manager is trying to manage all of this. We have true recruiters managing it and giving them the tools to do it.
It's interesting. Our client, who is the largest global employer, they had a real challenge. And the challenge was, how do we hire hundreds of thousands of people going into the holiday season? And they have a huge staff. And they wanted to make sure that they created empathy in the brand, because the job seeker is also their customer. And so what we ended up rolling out was, we used some technology tools, texting, scheduling. They're using their back-end applicant tracking system. But we supplemented that with our recruiting solutions team. We have 48 recruiters just reaching out to them, making phone calls, having conversations, trying to clear them through the process, because it's important to this organization, again, to have that empathy, because they have such a prominence in the marketplace, et cetera. And whether it's that client, or we see it in our logistics groups, our trucking carriers, it's really become very important. There's a shortage of truckers in the country. They are the most sophisticated with using technology, but they want phone calls. They use a short form like you were alluding to, and they want their internal recruiters to take those phone calls, process it. They have great internal technology, some external chat features and things like that. But they want, because they realize the cost per hire and the cost per driver. And if they don't get those drivers out there quick enough, they're going to lose revenue. So they can tie it back quantifiably to an ROI. And they care about the brand, because if a driver goes from one company for 10 cents a mile or 5 cents a mile, they're going to go to the next company. So if they don't create that brand, if they don't create that empathy, and the technology, whether it's their website, whether it's their screening questions, whether it's the chat bots that they may or may not use, it's all tied into creating a brand and creating a user experience that says, wow, we value you as an employee. So that's really important, especially in these competitive landscapes, in those two different competitive landscapes. Marie, let me ask you a question. Where do you see technology going for enterprise over the next year or two? And how may it help you in creating empathy?
Yeah, I and again, I think it starts with I'm really waiting for the true intelligence and the AI and to come, and I think it will. I think there's some great tools out there from an automation standpoint. Where I see technology continuing to support us and to grow with us as it does become, I guess, where the technology actually becomes something that we can rely on to still have that candidate experience. Again, for me, much more behind the scenes, but all those pain point pieces that are getting hit today are doing that for a reason. Back and forth interview scheduling, just letting someone know if they're still in the process or out of the process. So I think when I look ahead, what I hope to see is how can we take that one step further. So is there technology that's going to allow us, and I'd say somebody's probably already out there doing it, so I know I'll get a call later from someone to tell it to me. But one that really allows us to say, how do we take full advantage of that person and their skill set, and then take the things that we can to help them leverage it. So if it's beyond just interview scheduling, but maybe it's, understanding, what's most important to someone as they're making a decision, not taking away the conversation, but making sure that when we have that conversation, someone at the offer stage or in the interview process, we understand a little bit more about their, as we call them, hot buttons or heartburns, right? They're what is really, making them tick. There are other things on the front end, just from getting people interested and into our funnel, that we can do that automation or technology or AI can do for us that we're not doing yet, that feel personal versus feel like automation.
Right. Are you doing anything with, it's harder to sell the job today, right, than it was maybe 2 years ago. Even though pre-COVID we were at a low unemployment rate, while we were at a high unemployment rate now, there are multiple factors affecting that high unemployment. So I know you had spoken about earlier creating maybe some talent pools and things like that. And are you doing anything like that?
So we are in, I think as we look at our CRM functionality, I would say, that front end of the process, but starting at, just interaction on our website or with our digital properties or social, where can we start that conversation early, and get them into a pool. So again, even if it's what we call quick apply, which isn't truly, it is just some contact information, what we found is it's allowing us to get to that candidate experience and actually have, and be able to make an impact with someone who may or may not, they just did enough to put their name and email in. How do we take that as now a recruiter has a lead, and really treating, as we should have as we should always be doing, but really making sure our recruiters see their role as that kind of sales role where they're following the lead, they're jumping in on it. But yeah, I think there's, so we do have talent pools. We're right now, I think they're pretty much feeding into things in the way that we hire. We really, especially in the current situation, we're hiring mainly for these field roles. So whether it's that management training program that I spoke about, which is kind of our entry level management side, or our more customer service or back of house kind of support roles, whether they be some customer service roles on the front side, or those auto detailers and drivers on the back end that are helping us kind of with the logistics of this model today. So we're seeing less kind of administrative or corporate type roles and more of that happening right now.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think that, in our case, we see our clients, it's interesting to use the phrase quick apply, because that's what we call it in certain areas. In our logistics group, we call it quick apply, but with some other groups, we have a short landing page or whatever. And what we find is that our job seekers don't want to go through the whole process. They have multiple choices. The gig economy is taking away from from potential pool of applicants. And so I think the more and more that we see the gig economy starts taking away those potential candidates, the more and more our clients realize, and we try and press upon our clients, that you need to enhance your brand. You need to have empathy. So clients have almost, to your point, in many cases, veered a little and going back to basics. Picking up that telephone and calling that potential job applicant has really become a key differentiator between some clients and other clients, especially in these very, in these tough areas to compete for, whether it be healthcare or whether it be drivers or even the retail sector. The retail sector, is having a really, really challenging time right now getting labor. So.
Yeah. Agreed. I think I think we're on the same page there. It's interesting to hear the examples that you're sharing on behalf of your clients. Getting to having the same issues, whether across industries but definitely a lot of the same opportunities out there, and getting to them in a very similar way with different levels of kind of people versus automation based on what their resources are. So, when you mentioned Chili's, and those are all hiring managers who, they have a business to run, and this is their kind of on the side, but it's important. They're going to need more technology than an organization like ours, where we have a lot of recruiting talent that has the ability to take the time to personalize and make the phone call and follow up with the text, or do what they have to do to make sure to kind of get in front of that person at the right stage. But technology and automation and a lot of the tools that you're speaking of and that are out there are allowing it to kind of even the playing field a bit, to help.
We're all competing for the same talent pool.
Right.
So it's really first to market wins.
Yeah.
We had a client, we have a large fast food client, and their challenge was they thought after they laid everybody off that 50 or 60% of the employees would come back, and only 20% came back.
Mm-hmm.
So we've used automation tools to try and really wrap media, automation tools, extra recruiters, just a whole potpourri of things to try and get their stores and so forth open. So it's definitely been a challenge, and they have their brand name is very recognized in the industry. So they want to be sensitive to what tools they use and how they deploy things. So, but I think Peter is giving us a message that our time is up. And if anybody has any questions for Marie or I, please feel free.
Louis and Marie, that was terrific. It was a fascinating exploration of the whole topic. We do have a number of pre-reserved questions that I'll get to in just a minute. We do not have any submitted through the Q&A function yet. So any of you out there who have been listening to the discussion, please feel free to submit those questions. Before I go to the pre-reserved questions, so let me just ask the two of you, Louis and Marie, are you seeing any differences in terms of the generational impact of this technology? I mean, you talked about the differences between truck drivers and excuse me, and retail folks, but how about generationally? And obviously young folks going into the training program in enterprise, they're digital natives, they're very comfortable with that, but what about older folks like us boomers?
So 3 years ago, Peter, we would have said there's a difference. Today, the average driver is probably around 45 to 55 years old. We don't see a difference. They've embraced technology. Most of their applications are coming from a mobile device. In healthcare and nursing, they've embraced tech. They were slow, but they've embraced it. So we don't really see a difference in technology. There is an attention span difference. We see that there's an attention span difference from a mobile device versus a tablet versus a desktop, how we should serve things up, because some people don't want to go past, like Marie said, 3 or 4 questions.
So interestingly, thanks, Peter. And Louis, we see the same from our driver pool tends to be a more experienced worker, and they've always been kind of leading the way in our mobile apply as far as percentages go. But I think, to your point, something that we found really interesting with today's college student, college grad is they want the personalization, and they actually don't like a lot of the automation. As much as they're the digital native, they want the high touch, they want the handheld. And as we go to Gen Z versus Gen Y, or however you look at that, we're seeing some shifts, but we are really seeing that differentiation of the phone call, the conversation, those things, even though they might not pick up the phone until you text them and tell them it was you that called, they want that person and not necessarily all the automation. So that was really surprising, because I think we hear technology and think, oh, they're going to be fine with it. And they're actually, I don't know why, but I think everybody just wants to feel special no matter, where they sit in that pool. But we have seen some of that.
Great. Okay, well, we did have a question submitted through the Q&A function. Stephen, would you please raise your hand, use the raise your hand tab at the bottom frame of, at the bottom of the Zoom frame, and our producers will recognize you, and then you can turn your camera and mic on and ask your question. I feel like we should be playing music in the background or something, so he can walk down the aisle and come up on stage. So, Stephen, are you having problems, or shall we? Let's just see here. Here we go.
There he is.
Sorry, my mic was off. You don't want me on camera right now?
Yeah, well, yeah, we do, but it's up to you.
No, trust me. I was wondering, a question for, first of all, Louis and Marie, good to see you. Thank you for sharing. I was wondering if Enterprise and Chili's to drive the candidate flow that they're that you both are looking for those organizations, if you've been using programmatic job ad distribution for those for the hiring. If so, has that been beneficial? If not, why not?
Marie.
So I know enough to be dangerous on this question. Hi, Stephen. Good to hear your voice. So we have been piloting some programmatic. We have not fully shifted over to that, but we have been piloting it. And I will tell you that due to just the circumstances around our industry and where the business went and is coming to now, we had stopped media for quite a while, and we have just started turning it back on in the last 2 months. So we don't have a lot to be able to track what's working or not, in any large scale. but we do recognize that, especially for some of those support roles, that that programmatic is a good option. You know, it's kind of it's like turning the ship in, with us and making that shift. So we're doing it a little at a time, but we are definitely testing it.
So, Stephen, good to see you. Good to hear from you. We have been using programmatic as a key driver of quality for Chili's. And when we layer the programmatic in with our artificial intelligence tool, we're able to really deliver the quality to them in an expedient manner, in a cost-efficient manner. Pre-COVID, we were doing a fairly substantial trial with one of Marie's competitors, and we were able to drive quality and to them in a very efficient manner as well. However, then COVID came in. So we have seen, I think it's important when you look at programmatic, how do you drive quality? Quantity is never an issue. It's quality that's the issue. And we have to define what quality is with our clients. Technology, our AI tool, will allow us to really filter out and slice and dice quality.
Awesome. Thank you very much, both.
Okay, so we're going to now go to the pre-submitted questions. We've had some challenges with technology getting one of our questioners on, but I think he is now available. Mike, would you please click on the raise your hand tab at the bottom of the Zoom frame? That'll tell our producers you're ready to go, and then turn on your mic and your camera and ask your question.
Okay, I'm here.
Yes, you are.
I didn't have a raise your hand icon to hit. Hi, everyone. How y'all doing? So the question I've got is in regarding to basically, recruitment, basically automation. In this era, is there such a thing as candidate empathy? How do you manage that component in the mix?
So for us, for some of our clients, we're managing it through the brand. We're taking the brand, and whatever we use in technology, we're taking that brand and applying it in the technology, depending on what the platform is and what it allows us to do. In our own proprietary platform, we're able to take the brand, replicate the brand, and so forth, and use that brand in the technology so that the job seeker can really get a feel for who and what they are. Marie?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm just making sure that I understand what you're looking for. So I think when we're, from the empathy side and making sure is that so how the candidate feels about us? Or
Yeah,
how we feel about
I mean, definitely the interaction. So are you able to generate between your manual interaction and the mechanical, the automated, such a consistency that the candidate, feels that they are, talking to basically the brand and the representatives of that brand.
Yeah.
That it doesn't become stilted through the automation.
Right. So I think, again, as I spoke, a lot of our automation is behind the scenes. So what they're getting is very personal is very much a person, even if driven by the automation on the back. And I think one of the main reasons for that is exactly your point, and our brand and what it stands for, and why we've been so hesitant to maybe add in more automation on the front end or the candidate facing side is to really be true to our brand. So, as we look at it and as we have the ability to manage our flow and our pools with that balance, I think we'll continue to do that and then continue to explore what's out there in the future that might be able to allow us to implement more of that automation. But I think it is important that who we are, what we stand for, what our brand is, and then that person comes out in whatever that interaction is, that they feel like they're actually somebody's listening and actually responding in a way that's meaningful.
Mike, it's hard to really apply the brand across different mediums, and that's a challenge. And there's some great technology tools out there, but sometimes if you're working with a branded client, you've got to be really, careful and make sure you don't lose the integrity of the brand, and that is a challenge. to some of the brands, like Marie.
So, but if you have
Definitely.
the human as, the user interface, if you will, the customer facing part of the program, particularly in times like these when you've got a lot of people in transition, is that scalable? I mean, is it a challenge to move from technology to human and keep that empathy going when you've got so many people to deal with?
Well, we're hiring for our client hundreds of thousands of people in a 90, 120-day period. So we're layering technology on as a very first short initial screen, and then backing that up by a cadre of recruiters who are articulating, like Marie would be in Marie's company, articulating the corporate brand. Because again, those potential job applicants are potential customers of our client. So we need to make sure. So yes, it is scalable. Is it challenging? Yes. Do they still have empty positions? Yes. But they made the conscious decision to balance, like Maria is doing, automation and the touch of empathy and the touch of one-on-one communication.
Great. Mike, thank you very much for your question. We're now going to move on to
See you,
the
Mr. Duncan.
Take care.
we'll now move on to the second question, which has also been submitted by a Mike W. Will you please join us up on stage and ask your question?
Hi, Maria. Hi, Lewis. Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah,
Great.
we've got you. You're good.
So cool. So thanks, thanks for sharing this information. So Maria, I find it really interesting that you guys hire kind of from two different segments, your drivers and your associates. And you said, you kind of already answered my question about, kind of do millennials, do they really care about the human interaction and the human touch? You covered that a few minutes ago. But can you dig a little deeper on that? How do you know that? I mean, how do you know that they care about that? I'm not questioning whether you're right or wrong. I'm just curious about how do you know that?
So a lot of it is just from research that we're a part of, or that we've gotten, that comes out around that audience. Again, campus and college recruitment is a big chunk of our overall strategy. So we work on a lot with a couple of different research firms and folks to get some of that detail. Some of it we're seeing just in our own experiences and in our own internal communications with the folks in the process. So, onboarding discussions, we work with a couple of different research teams that have put out, and shown over and over again that, there's a misperception from that audience, and that the millennial, and now to Gen Z, I think even more so as we're seeing, and that, that they're okay without the person. And so we've seen it in our process. We certainly feel it as we do it. And then again, as we talk to new folks, as we onboard and kind of validate that, we often hear back, more anecdotally than in a research fashion, but, the importance or the difference that it made, that there was a person that they could talk to, that they could ask questions of, that somebody reached out to them, that, when we look at, the Indeeds of the world, and you're getting blasted with, they're getting so many things from so many recruiters at the same time, that what differentiates is that when there's that personal touch is still a differentiator. As much as we all talk about it, it doesn't happen as much on the front end. But we do have a lot of research. I don't know if sharing the organizations we work with, a number of them, but some of them that come to mind would be, one is Ivy Research, which is on the campus side. Mary Scott does a lot of campus research, and we participate in it. So it's our candidate pools and some of our folks and things like that too. So
Great, thank you.
And Mike, also, one of our clients is the second largest hospital chain in the country. And originally, they're always looking for healthcare professionals, nursing in particular. Then during COVID, they stopped for 90, 120 days, and now they're almost back up to normal. they have pivoted from technology and gone to a more human, hands-on touch approach, because they feel that the applicants are giving them the feedback, we're going into a black hole. And some of their local hospitals in their local markets are going back into this, you know, high touch environment. So it's kind of peculiar because we see them vacillating back and forth.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more question. This one is from Pete. Pete, would you go ahead and come on up and ask your question, please?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thanks to Lewis and Marie for sharing your insights. Much appreciated. A Vonage study recently found that 61% of customers who speak with interactive virtual assistants report a negative experience. In keeping with the automation theme, how can you avoid that?
So that's why I haven't used one. I keep saying that I'm not going to put our candidates through that experience till I have one that I am happy with. And I just find them frustrating. I know there are things that can happen automation wise that certainly work, but and so I'm not completely, you know, old school and a dinosaur, but I think especially those candidate facing front end experiences, you know, it's to me, it's just still so easy to recognize that they're not a person. And I do, we've had this conversation philosophically. I do believe that you need to make sure that whoever is using that tool knows that it's not a person. I think in a lot of cases, they're trying to say, you know, it's kind of, they're making people think that you actually have a person on the other end, but it's really not. And I think that transparency is really important so that the expectation kind of meets it. And we found that, I think there's a way to do it though. I do think that number can shift even with the tool not being perfect if the candidate understands the why. So, you know, a perfect example would be those asynchronous interviews, the video interviews that a lot of people do, especially, you know, in high volume, the recorded interviews, and they always get very negative reviews and negative feedback when the research happens. On the campus side, we don't do it, but a couple of my peers have shared some great information I think I agree with, which is if you shared with them that this allows us to get to more of you, that we probably wouldn't get a chance to talk with you or to interview you, you know, so this allows us the opportunity to broaden things and get you in the process. When you give them the context of that, they're a little bit more understanding. So is there a way to do the same in that situation, whether it's a chat feature or whatever it might be, to make sure someone understands that this is a way for them to get more attention, not less, based on the resources that are available or just what's out there.
So with transparency, Lewis, before you dive in, with transparency, do you believe that you could achieve a better sense of empathy?
You know, I think
if people know that what they're dealing with as it relates to the tool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we put a tool in place for 2 of our clients, similar tool to what you're saying. We saw a higher drop-off rate and a higher dissatisfaction rate, because then we did a survey afterward to find out what their responses were and what their thoughts were. And I don't know if transparency, I think maybe the marketplace may not be ready for it yet. Remember, we're still in a competitive landscape. And the consumer or the job applicant's mind isn't shifting as quickly as maybe technology is moving. From the 20-year-old to the 65-year-old. So I think the technology is maybe available, but not sophisticated yet enough. And it's not going to translate into an empathetic tool at this point in time. We haven't seen it. We've tested it a couple times.
Understood.
But there are some video tools out there that can create that empathy and that can create that story. You know, let's see, I don't think he's on here, but you know, somebody like Altru has a very interesting tool that can create a great brand and create a great story and create empathy in a social setting.
Okay, well, Lewis and Marie, any final parting comments that you'd like to leave us with? It's been a really great conversation. We have a couple more minutes if you have something you'd like to close with.
I just, from our standpoint, we're constantly looking at tools, and we're constantly getting phone calls from many, many vendors, many, many startups. You know, if you go to HR Tech, you can see that startup row, or if you go to HR Tech, you see 1,000 booths one year. There are a lot that aren't back the next year. So for us, it's a matter of vetting the technology for our clients, and really what's good, what's appropriate, does it foster the client's mission? And everybody's going to tell you it fosters their mission, but we're very judicious in how we put technology in. We want to make sure the tech stack is appropriate for the client. Today's security is a huge issue. I think while technology is there and it's awesome, and we wouldn't be where we are today without technology, we've got to make sure the technology and empathy meet to help our clients grow. And Marie?
Yeah, I would echo the same. I think that it's the understanding that no two businesses or processes are the same. So, you know, when looking at the balance, a lot has to do with the ability, the resources, the structure of the organization, the commitment, and how it matches their brand or their culture. You know, I know that we are very fortunate to have leadership who sees our role and our function as the need to be personal and to have the resources necessary to be able to do the things I described. And that's not always the case. And that doesn't make it a good or bad leadership or company. But I think, you know, you have to balance what you're capable of and then use the tools, you know, that can support that. So, you know, for me, I think that, you know, I'll go back to, I really believe that, you know, as long as we always keep in our minds that technology should be supporting the experience and not replacing the person, you know, so where can it best support the candidate experience? Where can it best support a better, you know, communication? Where is there more empathy, not less? You know, and it's as we evaluate all these different tools and what they do for us, what is that impact? You know, we saw, you know, prior to COVID, when we were kind of crazy in this hiring world in a really tight market, and, you know, even with all that we have, you know, anytime we implemented a technology that was allowing, you know, a step to maybe be easier, there was a quick, our recruiters were quick to try to find a way to use it to not be available, to not communicate, to not have that, you know, personal side, because they were busy, and totally get it. So I think it's also keeping, you know, a pulse on when you do implement something, keeping a pulse on how it's being used, what the reaction is, what the expectations are. You know, it's just going to continue to grow. So how do we balance that out?
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I know that I certainly got a lot out of the conversation, both from Marie and Lewis, and also from our questioners. So thank you very much. We hope all of you out there in the audience enjoyed it. That sound you hear, Lewis and Marie, that low roar, that's everybody applauding your discussion. So thank you very much for that. If we can.